Caleb had been riding alone for most of the morning, guiding his old chestnut horse along a quiet mountain trail that rarely saw travelers. The sun had not climbed too high yet, and a cool wind moved through the pine trees, carrying the smell of dust and wildflowers. Caleb liked these lonely paths. They helped him forget the long, empty years on his ranch years spent doing chores, repairing fences, and caring for injured animals because there was no one else around to do it. People in nearby towns knew him as a kind, silent cowboy who never turned away from trouble if someone needed help. He never asked for anything in return. It was simply how he lived. But that morning, something unexpected broke the silence. As he passed a rocky bend, he heard a strange noise deep, strained, almost like a low thunder but shaped into a voice. Caleb pulled on the reins and stopped. His horse snorted, sensing something unusual. He listened carefully. The sound came again, a long, shaky breath, followed by a faint cry. Definitely human, but heavier and deeper than any voice he had heard before. Someone was in pain. Caleb swung off his horse without hesitation. He tied the reins to a branch and followed the sound, stepping over stones and pushing through tall bushes. The wind carried another breath of distress, and he moved quicker. When he turned a corner, he finally saw her. Sitting beside a fallen log was a woman, unlike any he had ever seen. She was huge, taller than any man in town, her shoulders broad, her arms strong, her long dark braid thick as a rope. Her clothes were made of hand-woven fabric decorated with patterns of her mountain tribe. But what caught Caleb's attention most was the look on her face. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her brows pulled together, and sweat dripped down her forehead. She was clearly in pain, serious pain. He slowed his steps so he wouldn't frighten her. "Ma'am," he called softly. "Are you hurt?" Her eyes opened, and for a moment she looked startled. Then she focused on him, breathing hard. Her voice came out low and shaky, deeper than most women's voices, but full of distress. "I need help," she whispered. "It aches. Down there." Caleb could tell it took a lot of courage for her to admit those words. He didn't move closer right away, giving her time to feel safe. "My name's Caleb," he said gently. "I'm a cowboy from the valley. I've helped folks with injuries before. I won't hurt you. Just tell me what's wrong." She pressed a hand to her lower side, near her hip and upper thigh. Her fingers trembled. "My name is Mira," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am from the mountain tribe, and I was walking to my wedding camp. But the rocks. I slipped. Something tore. The ache is growing worse." Caleb glanced at the area she held. From the way she sat, bent slightly and drawing in sharp breaths, he knew the pain must be bad. But he also understood her hesitation. Injuries near the lower body were sensitive, even when they weren't private. Some people felt embarrassed, even if the wound was only on their outer thigh. Especially someone from a tribe with strict customs. Caleb crouched near her, still keeping a respectful distance. "You don't have to tell me anything you're not comfortable with," he said quietly. "But if the wound is deep, and if dirt got inside, it can get infected fast. I just want to help you before it gets worse." Mira looked at him with eyes full of conflict, fear, hope, pain, and uncertainty all mixed together. She was clearly struggling to decide what to do. A giant woman like her probably didn't ask for help often, especially from a stranger. And her tribe's traditions likely didn't allow such things easily. But the ache was making her tremble. Her breaths were getting shorter. She tried to shift her weight but winced sharply, and her whole body tensed. Her pain was real, and it was worsening. Caleb spoke again, his voice steady. "I've treated wounded horses, bulls with cuts, travelers with broken bones, and even a lumber worker who had a bad gash on his thigh. Pain is pain. A wound is a wound. There's nothing strange about needing help." That seemed to ease something inside her. She looked down at where her hand rested near her hip. Sweat rolled down her temple. She swallowed hard. "I cannot reach the place," she admitted, "and I fear looking at it. It burns. It throbs. I thought I could walk, but I cannot." Caleb nodded. "Then let me take a look. Only if you give permission." Myra hugged her arms around herself, unsure. "It is close to the cloth of my dress," she murmured. "My people." We do not show such areas to strangers, he immediately reassured her, his voice firm but gentle. I won't ask you to uncover anything you don't want to. Just enough to see where the injury is. I can work with whatever you feel right showing. Your safety and comfort come first. She studied his face carefully, searching for any hint of disrespect or hidden intent. But Caleb's expression stayed calm and steady, just a cowboy concerned for someone in pain. His hands stayed at his sides, relaxed and patient. Finally, Mira let out a slow breath. I trust you, she whispered. Please, help me. Caleb moved closer, but slowly letting her see every motion so she wouldn't feel alarmed. When he knelt beside her injured side, he could see how tense she was. Her muscles were tight, her fingers gripping the edge of the log as if bracing for what came next. Show me only what you feel safe showing, he said softly. I'll tell you what I see, and you can stop me at any moment.
I'm Ardad.
With trembling hands, she lifted the edge of the cloth near her hip, exposing a portion of her upper thigh area, still safe and not private, but clearly where the pain centered. The moment the cloth shifted, Caleb saw the problem. There was a long, deep cut, darkened with dried blood, dirt, and tiny pieces of rock dust. The wound wasn't in a sensitive place, but it was dangerously close to a large artery. One more slip on the rocks earlier could have caused something far worse. And if infection set in now, she could fall into fever long before she reached her tribe's healers. Caleb stayed calm so she wouldn't panic. I see the cut, he said gently. It's not in a private spot, but it's close to a place that makes everything more painful. The good news is, I can clean it. I can stop the infection before it starts. Mira swallowed, eyes watering. Will it hurt? A little, Caleb admitted honestly, but I'll be careful, and I'll tell you what I'm doing each step. You can stop me any time. She gripped the log again and nodded. I am ready. Caleb took a slow breath. He reached for his canteen, torn cloths from his saddlebag, and the small pouch of herbs he always carried. His hands moved steady and professional, nothing rushed. He worked like someone who had spent years calming injured animals. Quiet, respectful. Mira watched him closely, her breathing uneven. She was a giant, strong enough to lift a fallen tree, yet in that moment she looked fragile, unsure, and very human. Caleb gave her a soft smile to ease her fear. I'll help you, he said again, his voice warm and sure. You're not alone out here. Mira let out a long, shaky breath. The tension in her shoulders eased just a little. For the first time that morning, she felt hope instead of fear, and Caleb, kneeling beside her with the tools to heal her, knew this was only the beginning of a long and unexpected journey, one that neither of them had planned. But both of them needed more than they realized. Caleb took a slow breath before beginning his work. He could see the fear in Mira's eyes, even though she tried to hide it behind her strength. She was a giant woman, raised to be brave, raised to be calm, even in danger, but pain spoke a language that no strength could silence. The cut near her hip had already begun to swell slightly, and the dirt inside it worried him. He had seen injuries like this before. Infection was not something to take lightly, especially for someone far from healers. If he didn't act soon, things could turn worse. He opened his canteen and poured a small amount of water over the wound. Mira flinched and sucked in a sharp breath. Her hand instinctively reached for the ground, claws of tension digging into the soil. Her body trembled from the sudden sting. Caleb kept his voice steady and soft. I know it hurts. I'm sorry. This is just to clean the dirt. The pain will lessen in a moment. Mira nodded tightly, biting down on her lower lip, trying to stay strong. She closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them again, meeting his gaze. Do what you must, she whispered. I trust you. That simple statement made Caleb work even more carefully. He didn't want to betray that trust, not even for a second. He dampened a clean cloth and gently wiped around the wound, first never touching the injured part without warning. Every motion was slow and respectful. Ow. Mira watched his hands closely, her breath shaky, but steadying each time he told her what he was about to do next, when he finally moved to remove some dirt that had settled deeper inside the cut. Mira tensed again. Her shoulders went rigid. She turned her head away from the wound, as though bracing for something worse. This part might hurt just a bit, Caleb said in a calm voice. But I'll be careful. If you need me to stop at any time, say the word. Her deep voice came back soft but brave. Do not stop until it is clean. Pain is better than sickness. Those words showed her strength of and weakness. She had resolve. Caleb admired that silently. He used a small wooden tool from his kit, a rounded stick used for cleaning wounds in animals, but safe for people too. Very carefully, he removed bits of grit and dried blood. Mira sucked in breath after breath, sometimes letting out a low groan when the ache sharpened. At one point, her hand reached out blindly, and she grabbed a nearby tree root to steady herself. Caleb paused. Do you want to rest for a moment? She shook her head quickly, sweat glistening on her forehead. No, finish. I do not wish for this sickness to grow. He nodded. Her determination only made him more careful. He continued until the wound was completely clean. When he stepped back slightly, Mira finally let out a long exhale, as if she had been holding her breath for minutes. You did good, Caleb said gently. The dangerous part is over. I just need to clean around it again and put herbs to help with the swelling. Mira opened her eyes slowly. The burning is less now, she murmured. It still aches, but different. That's a good sign, he replied with a small smile. The infection didn't set in yet. We got to it in time. She watched him as he prepared the herbs. He crushed them with a small stone, mixing them with a bit of water to form a paste. While he worked, her breathing grew steadier. The worst pain had passed, and relief was starting to reach her expression, softening the worry lines near her eyes. As he applied the herbal paste around the cut, not on the wound itself, Myra only winced lightly. The sting wasn't as sharp anymore. Her massive hands unclenched, and she stopped gripping the log. Her shoulders sank a little, showing she was finally beginning to relax. You know much about healing, she said softly, watching him tie a clean cloth around her thigh to hold the herbs in place. Caleb shrugged slightly. Someone had to learn. The valley is big. Not many healers stay long. Folks get hurt. Animals get hurt. So I do my best. Mira tilted her head. Do you travel alone always? He nodded. Mostly. My ranch is far out. Not many come by. It's just me and the animals. I fix what needs fixing. Help who needs helping. There was something in his words that touched her. She looked at him differently now. Not just as a stranger, not just as a helper, but as someone who lived with the same loneliness she felt deep inside. She took a soft breath. Your kindness is rare, she said quietly. In my tribe, many are strong, but not all have gentle hearts. Caleb smiled almost shyly. Being gentle doesn't make someone weak, she nodded slowly. No, it makes them brave. He finished securing the bandage and sat back on his heels, stretching his stiff arms. The swelling will start to go down soon. You'll feel better in a little while. Mira tried to adjust herself, but pain shot up her side, and she winced sharply. Caleb instinctively reached out to steady her arm. Even though she was giant and strong, in that moment she leaned into his support the way a tired traveler might lean on a sturdy tree. Careful, he said softly. Don't move too quick. The cut is clean now, but still fresh. You need slow, steady motion. Mira nodded, breathing slowly until the ache eased again. I am grateful, she whispered. If you had not come, I do not know what would have become of me. Caleb shook his head gently. Anyone would have helped. She looked at him firmly. No. Many would walk away. Fear makes people cruel. But you did not fear me. Not my size, not my tribe. You just saw someone in need. Her words were simple, but they hit Caleb harder than he expected. He didn't often receive praise. He didn't expect it. He didn't look for it. Hearing it from someone who barely knew him stirred something quiet inside his chest. He cleared his throat, a little embarrassed. That's all that mattered. For a few minutes they sat in silence. The wind rustled the leaves gently, and birds called from the trees. Mira breathed more calmly now. Her huge frame no longer shook from pain. She looked toward the mountain path she had been traveling. I was walking to my wedding, she said suddenly. My tribe waits for me in a camp far ahead. They must think I am close by. But I fell. I could not rise at first, and the ache made the path feel endless. Caleb glanced at the trail thoughtfully. If you try to walk like this, you'll hurt the wound again, or tear it worse. You need rest. Myra's brows pulled together. If I am late, the ceremony may be delayed. Families will worry. My duty, your duty is also to stay alive, Caleb interrupted gently. Your tribe won't want you arriving hurt. Let them worry a little. Better that than losing you. She looked down, considering his words carefully. Her people valued strength, but they also valued wisdom. And Caleb was right, walking too soon might destroy all the progress he had made. She sighed softly, acknowledging the truth. You speak with sense, she murmured. But I fear the shame of arriving weak. It's not weakness, Caleb said simply. It's being human. She looked at him again, her expression softer than before. You speak in ways my people do not, she said. You look at things from the heart, Caleb smiled. Maybe I've just lived alone too long. Gives a man time to think. Mira shifted slightly, testing her leg. The ache was still there, but the burning had eased. She could breathe without gritting her teeth. A small bit of comfort returned to her face. Caleb stood and offered his hand, not demanding, simply offering. Let's try to get you standing. Slowly I'll support you. Just lean on me if needed. She hesitated, not because of distrust, but because of fear of hurting herself again. Then she placed her massive hand gently in his smaller one. The size difference was striking. Her hand could almost engulf his butt. She held him with surprising delicacy. He braced himself and helped her rise, inch by inch. Mira groaned softly as the muscles near her hips stretched, but Caleb kept a firm, steady hold.
Ow.
Once she was upright, she rested her weight partly on him, partly on her uninjured leg. I will not fall, she said, almost to reassure herself. I won't let you, Caleb replied quietly. Together, they took one slow step forward. Mira breathed through the ache. Then another step. Each movement was careful, controlled. Caleb guided her gently, matching her pace. After several minutes, she managed to stand without holding on to him. She didn't move far, just stood tall, testing her balance. The sight of her strong but vulnerable, tall but trusting made Caleb feel something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. You'll heal fine, Caleb said. Just need time. Mira looked down at him, gratitude and something deeper in her eyes. I wish my tribe could see what you have done, she whispered. They would honor you. Caleb shook his head slightly. I don't need honor. Just want to make sure you're safe. She smiled for the first time since he found her. It was small, tired, but warm like sunlight peeking through clouds. You already have. And as she stood there, supported by the cowboy who had appeared like a quiet miracle, Mira realized something she had never felt before. She was not alone on this mountain trail. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face her pain alone either. Caleb stayed close to Mira as she balanced herself on her feet, making sure she didn't sway or lose her footing. The mountain breeze cooled the sweat on her brow, and she breathed a little easier now that the sharp pain had calmed. Still, the ache remained like a dull reminder of how close she had come to danger. Caleb kept one hand ready near her side, ready to catch her if she slipped. You're doing well, he said gently. But we shouldn't push things too fast. Mira nodded slowly. I can feel the strength coming back, but the tenderness remains. That's normal, Caleb assured her. Your muscles around there took a hard hit. They're reacting to the injury. She shifted her weight slightly and tested her leg again. Her balance held, but a soft groan escaped her lips. Caleb moved a little closer without touching her, simply offering quiet support by being near. Try not to bend too much, he advised. Keep your steps small. Myra looked at him gratefully. You speak as if you have done this for many years. Caleb shrugged modestly. I've patched up a lot of creatures' horses, cows, even a couple of mountain travelers. Folks call me when they're desperate. And yet you act with such calmness, Myra said, studying him, as if helping is your nature. He smiled softly. Maybe it is. Maybe it's easier for me to help others than to help myself. Her face softened. You speak of loneliness. Caleb didn't answer right away. He simply nodded once. Mira understood. Strength could hide sorrow, and even the strongest hearts could feel empty when there was no one waiting at home. She decided to sit again before walking any farther, and Caleb helped her settle on a large rock. She lowered herself slowly, breathing carefully so the ache wouldn't spike again. Once she was steady, Caleb sat across from her on the ground, his back against a tree. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't heavy. It was comforting, to people resting after a moment of fear. Mira broke the silence first. "You saved me from worse pain. In my tribe, this means you have done a noble act." Caleb chuckled quietly. "I didn't do it for any honor. I just couldn't leave you hurting like that." Her large hands rested on her knees as she looked toward the sky. "My tribe believes that pain makes us strong. But this pain was different. It frightened me." "That's nothing to be ashamed of," Caleb said gently. "Pain close to important muscles will scare anyone." Mira looked down at him, her wide dark eyes soft. "I meant more than the wound. I was afraid of failing my tribe." Her voice grew quieter. "Failing the wedding. Failing the path set for me." Caleb tilted his head slightly. "Do you want that path? The wedding?" She hesitated, and the truth slipped out in her silence long before her words came. "I do not know," she finally admitted. "The wedding is arranged. Our tribes wish to unite for peace. I was chosen because I am the daughter of a strong family." Her voice trembled. "But my heart, it does not feel ready." Caleb listened closely. "Have you met the man you're meant to marry?" "Only twice," she said. "We spoke, but only about duty. He seems kind, but distant. He does not know me, and I do not know him." Caleb nodded slowly. "That ain't easy. Walking into a life you're not sure about." Mira turned her face toward him. "You understand this?" "I think anyone would," he said simply. "People are more than the roles others expect them to play." Mira breathed gently. His words gave voice to feelings she had kept hidden for months. She always followed what her tribe requested, always tried to be strong. But deep inside, she often felt lost, unsure if she was living her own life or carrying the weight of others' expectations. "What about you?" she asked softly. "You live alone. Does your heart not wish for someone?" Caleb paused. This was not a question he received often. Most people didn't look past the surface of a quiet cowboy who fixed fences and tended animals. Sometimes, he admitted, "But it seems life kept me busy in other ways. Whenever I thought about finding someone, life moved too fast, and then to quiet." Mira watched him with gentle understanding. "Your heart is kind," she said. "Kind hearts deserve someone to share life with." Caleb smiled faintly at the compliment, though it stirred something deeper inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He cleared his throat softly. "Well," he joked lightly, "I'm better at fixing cuts than fixing my own life." Mira let out a soft laugh, deep, warm, genuine. It was the first time she had laughed since he found her, and it brought a brightness to her face even the pain couldn't dim. "You speak with humor," she said. "In my tribe, those who heal are serious." Caleb leaned back against the tree. "Sometimes humor helps more than medicine." She nodded gently. "Yes." Your voice made the pain less sharp. He looked at her for a moment. "Good. That means I'm doing my job." Mira breathed deeply and let her shoulders relax. "Tell me," she said softly, "how did your life become so quiet?" Caleb hesitated, then began to share. "My parents passed when I was young. I grew up fast. Took over the ranch. It became my life. People needed help, so I helped. Days turned into years. I got used to being alone. Does it not hurt you?" Mira asked quietly. Sometimes, he answered honestly. "But I figured helping others was a good way to fill the emptiness." Mira lowered her head slightly, touched by how honest he was. "You have carried your pain alone," she murmured. "That is heavier than any wound." Caleb shrugged lightly. "Life happens. We get through it. But who helps you?" she asked. He blinked, surprised by the question. He had never thought about it. He had always been the helper, the fixer, the quiet man who held others steady. No one had ever asked who held him steady. He opened his mouth but found no answer. Mira saw this. Her voice softened even more. You deserve someone to help you too. Caleb looked away for a moment. Her words touched something tender inside him, something he had kept buried for years. He swallowed gently. That's kind of you to say, he murmured. She studied him quietly. You've saved me today, but you saved more than my body. Her voice grew calm and warm. You saved me from fear, from shame, from feeling alone. Caleb felt something tighten in his chest, a mix of emotion he hadn't expected. You're not alone now, he said softly. Mira gazed at him with a gentle expression. Nor are you. They stayed like that for a while, simply sharing the moment. The rustling leaves, the distant mountains, the soft wind, all seemed to wrap around them quietly. For the first time in a long while, both of them felt seen, understood, and not alone. After a few minutes, Caleb checked her bandage again to make sure the herbs were working, but he didn't touch her without telling her first. The swelling is going down, he said. That's a good sign. Mira carefully touched the edge of the bandage. It feels warm, but not burning. That's the herbs working. She nodded with relief. You are skilled, Caleb. Truly. Caleb shook his head with humility. Just doing what I can. Mira looked at him seriously. I wish my tribe could meet you. They would see your heart. And what would they think about me? He asked with a small smile. They would think you are brave, she said without hesitation. Because bravery is not only strength. Bravery is kindness when others may walk away. Caleb felt warmth rise in his chest. He wasn't used to being spoken to with such gentle respect. You're strong too, he said. Stronger than you think. You handled the pain better than most men I've seen. Mira looked down, touched. I tried. And you did more than that, he replied. You kept calm. You trusted a stranger. That takes courage. She breathed softly. I trusted because you gave me reason to. Caleb nodded. Trust should always be earned, and you earned it. Their eyes met again. And something soft and quiet passed between them, something made not of romance or anything improper, but of genuine connection, sincere care, and the kind of understanding that only grows when two hearts meet in a difficult moment. Caleb stood slowly. When you're ready, we should walk a little. Just a few steps at a time. It'll help keep the muscles from stiffening. Mira agreed. She rose again with his help, leaning lightly on him as she steadied herself. Together, they took a few careful steps. Mira breathed through the ache, but she didn't panic this time. She trusted him completely. Caleb stayed close, matching his smaller stride with her larger one. He didn't rush her, didn't pressure her. He simply walked with her quiet, steady, dependable. They spent the next hour resting, walking a bit, resting again. And each time Mira moved, her trust in him deepened, while Caleb felt a growing warmth inside him that surprised him. Not romantic, not improper, just a deep sense of connection, gratitude, and quiet companionship. By the time the sun dipped lower in the sky, Myra could walk a little better. She still needed help, but she was no longer trembling or frightened. We'll reach your tribe soon, Caleb said gently. You won't face this journey alone. And a new sense of hope she hadn't expected to find on this trail. You walked beside me in my weakness, she whispered. That is a gift I will never forget. And as they continued together toward the path of her people, both felt that this shared moment of pain and healing had created a bond quiet but unbreakable that neither of them had ever known before. The sun was starting to lower behind the distant hills, painting the sky with pale orange light as Caleb and Mira continued their slow progress along the mountain trail. Mira leaned lightly on him when she needed balance, but her steps were steadier now. The herbs had begun to work, easing the sting of the wound. The pain no longer ruled her body. It had become something she could manage with deep breaths and quiet strength. They walked in comfortable silence. Caleb kept his eyes ahead, watching for any uneven stones that might cause her to stumble. Mira, for the first time since he found her, walked without fear. Every step felt safer because he was beside her. After a while, she spoke softly. You have given much of your strength today. Caleb shook his head. I just did what anyone should do. No, she said more firmly. Not everyone would stop for a stranger. Not everyone would stay this long. Not everyone would care this much. He gave a small smile. Maybe not everyone, but I'm not everyone. Mira smiled back, her expression warm. No, you are not. The trail opened into a wider stretch, revealing distant smoke rising from a cluster of tents far below, camp large enough to belong to a full tribe. Mira stopped walking and stared. Her eyes softened with relief. My people, she whispered. They must be waiting for me anxiously. Caleb nodded. Looks like they've sent scouts too. He pointed toward the edge of the camp, where several figures were riding out. Headed up the trail, Mira let out a breath she felt she had been holding since morning. I feared I would not reach them at all, she murmured. But now I can. You worked hard to stand and walk again, Caleb said. You didn't give up. I didn't give up because you didn't let me fall, she replied. Caleb felt a small tug inside his chest. Her words meant more than she knew. They continued down the path until they reached a flatter stretch where Mira could walk without leaning on him. Caleb stayed close, but gave her space, watching her carefully to make sure the strain didn't grow too much, as the tribe's riders drew nearer. Mira straightened her back and lifted her chin. She wanted to look strong when her people arrived. But Caleb noticed her shifting her weight slightly to keep pressure off the injured side. Even in pain, she held herself with quiet dignity. The first rider to reach them was a man with broad shoulders and braided hair decorated with feathers. He pulled his horse to a stop and dismounted quickly, his eyes full of worry. Mira, he called out. We feared the worst. Mira gave him a slow nod. I slipped on the rocks, she explained calmly. I was injured. The man's eyes traveled down to her bandaged hip, then to Caleb, who stood a short distance behind her. The rider's expression softened the moment he understood. This man helped you, he said, his voice filled with recognition. Yes, Mira replied. He saved me from pain and from danger. The rider stepped forward and bowed his head respectfully to Caleb. Stranger, you have given us a great gift. Our bride is safe because of you. Caleb shook his head modestly. Just did what I could. She was hurt bad. I couldn't leave her suffering. More riders arrived, 3 women, and another man, and they all greeted Mira with relief. One woman placed a hand gently on Mira's arm. We feared you were lost, she whispered. I was close to being lost, Mira said, but he found me. The woman turned to Caleb and bowed her head. You have our tribe's gratitude. Caleb nodded politely. It was the right thing to do. They surrounded Mira carefully, checking her condition without touching the injury. One of the women looked down the path. We must bring her home. The healers will tend to her properly. Caleb stepped back slightly to give them space. Mira watched him as the tribe prepared to help her walk the rest of the way. 2 women braced themselves on either side of her, offering gentle support. But Mira held up her hand. Wait, she said softly, her voice full of something tender. She turned to Caleb. He met her eyes, and for a moment the noise of the tribe faded behind them. It was just the 2 of them, again silent, calm, connected. I owe you more than words, she said quietly. You walked beside me when I was weak. You stayed when I trembled. You brought me back to my people. You did the hard part, Caleb replied. I just guided you, she smiled at his humility. And that guidance gave me strength. She reached into a small pouch tied to her belt and pulled out a wooden charm smooth, carved with delicate patterns and shaped like a protective symbol from her tribe. She placed it in his hand with great care. This is a guardian mark, she said. We give it to those who protect us in moments of fear. Keep it. It carries our respect and my gratitude. Caleb stared at the charm, surprised by its beauty and meaning. I don't know what to say. Mira took a slow breath. Then let your heart speak, not your words. He looked up at her. I'm glad I was there, he finally said softly. I'm glad you're safe. Her eyes warmed. You gave me safety. I will not forget. The riders began preparing to escort her home. The tribe moved with efficiency, but also gentle care as they eased Mira toward their horses. But before they led her away, She turned one last time. "Caleb," she said, her voice deep but soft, "you showed me kindness I have rarely seen. If ever you pass through our lands, you will be welcomed. My people will honor you." Caleb felt something stir again, a quiet warmth spreading through him. "I'll remember that," he said. "And I," she replied. There was a long, silent moment where they simply looked at each other. No words, no noise, just understanding. It wasn't love. It wasn't romance. It was something purer and deeper, two hearts recognizing the importance of what they shared during a difficult moment. Finally, the tribe began to move, guiding Mira down the trail toward the camp. She walked with more confidence now, supported by her people, her steps steady and proud. Caleb watched her go, the charm warm in his hand. As the distance grew between them, Mira glanced back one last time. Caleb raised his hand in a small gesture of farewell. She nodded in return, silent promise that she would remember him. When the tribe disappeared behind the bend of the trail, Caleb stood there alone for a long moment. The mountain breeze rustled through the trees again, carrying a quiet peace with it. He looked down at the charm in his hand and gently closed his fingers around it. He tucked it safely into his pocket and took a deep breath. Something inside him felt lighter. For years he had lived quietly, feeling the weight of loneliness even as he helped others. But today, he had shared something true with someone who saw him. Not just his actions, but his heart. He turned toward his horse, which had been patiently waiting under a tree. "Come on, old boy," he said softly. "Time to head home." He mounted the saddle and started down the path, but his steps felt different. His chest felt warmer. His thoughts felt clearer. It wasn't just the relief of helping someone. It was the feeling of connection, the reminder that even a lonely cowboy could touch someone's life in a meaningful way. As he rode back toward the valley, he held the charm inside his coat. No one in town would know the story behind it. No one would understand how a giant bride and a quiet cowboy shared a moment that healed more than just a wound. But Caleb would know, and Mira would know. And sometimes, that was enough. When the last rays of sunlight faded behind the mountains, Caleb reached the open valley. His ranch waited far off, small but steady. For the first time in a long while, he felt a small smile curve his lips, because now he carried something more than quiet loneliness. He carried the memory of a brave giant woman who trusted him. He carried the gratitude of a whole tribe. And he carried a little wooden charm, a reminder that even in the loneliest moments, a simple act of kindness could change a life, maybe two lives. And as he rode into the deepening dusk, Caleb knew he would never forget the day he helped Mira, the giant bride with the aching wound, and the quiet bond they formed on that long, difficult mountain trail.